Alright, so here this is topic BB.1, characteristics of a quadratic function. There are several things that they're going to ask you for in this topic. They're going to ask you for, one of them is the y-intercept. For that, you have to check where the graph crosses the y-axis. In this case, it crosses at positive 1. These are two different examples. I'm just showing you what the one that I have here on the notes. So if I look at the question here on IXL, they're asking me for my y-intercept. I look at the graph. Where does this graph cross the y-axis? So if we look closely, it's at 5, 6, at 7, positive 7. So type in your 7 there, and then submit. One of the other questions that they will ask you for here is for the vertex. For the vertex, you're always going to check the lowest or the highest point of the graph. In this case, that point is this one right here, the bottom. So this is the vertex. For the vertex, you have to use coordinates, which are your x and your y. So what number is my x at? So for the example I have here in the notes, I have x at negative 2. And my y is at negative 3. So that's my x and my y coordinate. Then that means I'm going to have negative 2, comma, negative 3. Okay, so again, that's for the example on my notes. Now let's look at the example on IXL. So I'm looking here at that bottom point in the graph. If I count on the grid, I'm going to have that at negative 2 for the x. And for the y, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 units down. So my vertex for that example will be negative 2, comma, negative, we don't have to do the comma, it's everything. 2 and negative 8. Alright, so here they're asking for the y-intercept again. In this case, it's going to be 0 because it goes through the origin. Again, they're asking us for vertex, so for this one, if we look closely, it's at positive 1 on the x, negative 1 on the y-axis. So 1, negative 1. This question right here. So what is the minimum value of the function? You have to look at the same point as when you do your vertex. And then what you want to check is what is the y value there. So in other words, here at the bottom, this vertex, I just want to know my y. My y is at negative 5. Okay, then this equation, the axis of symmetry. So the axis of symmetry, so you can actually get this information from this same graph. So this will be your axis of symmetry. If you're looking at the vertex, it's the x number. If you're looking at the vertex and you want to know the minimum or maximum, it will be the y number. So maximum or minimum. It is a maximum if the graph looks like this, and it is a minimum if the graph looks like this. So for this graph right here, my axis of symmetry, so I'm looking at my vertex, which is that point right there at the 0. I want to know the x coordinate. So if I was to make that into a point, that would be, so I'm going to write it here in the bottom of the notes, 0, 0. The axis of symmetry is just the x value. But anytime I have to write these, it's asking me for an equation. So what that means is I have to do x equals and then my number. So here I'm going to type x equals 0. Okay. Again, this one axis of symmetry, it's actually at the same exact point. So my answer for that, 0, 0, just like I did here in the notes, it's going to be x equals to 0. Okay, so in this graph, they're looking for the maximum. So I'm looking at my vertex, which is that point right there at the very top of the graph. And then for my maximum or minimum, just like I wrote down here, I want my y value. So what is my y value at that point? I have 1, 2, 3, positive 4. So that is my maximum for that graph, positive 4. For this one, I don't have to put y or x equals anything. It's just a number. Only axis of symmetry, you put x equals. And all the questions will be very, very similar to this one. If you can see here, we're already at 65. It's going to bring this up to 70. Axis of symmetry, it's at the origin. That means it'll be x equal to 0. What is my y-intercept? So where does it cross the y-axis? For this one, if you look down here, it crosses the y-axis at -5. Vertex. So my vertex is going to be on the x, 1, 2, positive 2, and on the y, -1, -2, -3, -4. So 2, -4. As you keep answering these questions, it's going to be the same thing over and over again. It's going to be very simple. So those are the three things that they will be looking for: your y-intercept, your axis of symmetry, and your maximum or your minimum. So for this one, you have 5, 6, 7. That is a maximum value of this function. It is at 7. If you guys have any additional questions, be sure to ask me to Google Classroom or join us on the Google meetings that I post daily so that I can help you with